What's up, legends? My name is Nick Updike, and today you guys are in for something very special. I'm going to take you on a journey into my past and share with you my story of how I've used absolutely soul-crushing setbacks in times of adversity as fuel for self-discovery, inner transformation, and ultimately to build the life of my dreams. I share this incredibly vulnerable story with you guys in hopes that it brings someone listening the courage, the inspiration, and the faith needed to overcome even the toughest of times and really to just never give up on yourself, right? Life is chaotic, life is messy, and life is unpredictable. We can't always control external events, but we can control something much more powerful, and that's our mindset, our actions, and how we choose to view our experiences and the world around us. So if you're watching this, I want you to know that you are more powerful than you can ever imagine. You're here to do incredible things, and you're here to shed all the BS limitations and beliefs that you may have adopted unconsciously in your life. It's time you guys come back to your true divine essence of wholeness and love, because right now our world needs your light. All right, now let's begin. For those of you who are new here, I've been a full-time day trader, mindset, and peak performance coach for a little bit over 4 years now. And in the last few years, I've been absolutely blessed with the opportunity to travel the world with some of my best friends while trading, coaching, and living the lifestyle of my dreams. But it was not always like this. What you guys see today started as a mere vision and slowly merged into my reality only after years of shedding false limitations, tons of self-mastery, and relentlessly pursuing my goals despite the constant setbacks and hardships that I'm going to share with you guys. So today, I'm going to show you exactly how an ordinary person just like me built a life centered around freedom, inner peace, and helping others create radical transformation. So my journey of self-discovery began when I was just 13, and the first major event that happened was during trials for the USA baseball team. I broke both my tibia and fibula, which as a super active kid, this is his worst nightmare. I was left in a full leg cast for the entire summer. I was stuck indoors, and ultimately this ended up turning out to be a massive blessing in disguise because I spent most of my time binge watching epic fishing vlogs and stories of entrepreneurs and athletes who overcame adversity to achieve massive success, right? And obviously this is not super typical behavior of a normal 13-year-old, but something inside me at this time was really ignited. It was super excited for the future. I realized that with enough perseverance, ordinary people could achieve very extraordinary things no matter how much they failed, whether it was traveling the world or building businesses that impact countless lives. So inspired by all of this, I was homeschooled during my 8th grade year, and I started a Facebook page called Teen Anglers International. I ended up beginning to film my own fishing vlogs and tutorials of like how to tie hooks and things like that. And I set the groundwork to one day live the adventurous life I admired on YouTube. So this was just the very beginning. So after the 8th grade, I was pretty much homeschooled the entire year, and then it was off to high school. And high school started off all fun and games. Freshman year went super smoothly, but all of that completely changed my sophomore year when I was rocked by a series of back-to-back really traumatic events. And without going into the details, one of my best friends in high school almost lost his life in a crazy freak mini golf accident from a ball I hit when we were messing around with a rubber putter. So he ended up suffering serious brain damage, and he lost most of his memories. He didn't remember who I was, his friends were, his parents, the refrigerator, etc. So this resulted in a lingering lawsuit that carried over my head the following years through high school. But honestly, I just thank God every day that he did make almost a full recovery over the next few years, because I truthfully don't know how I'd live with myself if he didn't, right? He was one of my best friends at the time. At the same time this was all going on, my parents were going through a separation. My mom moved out. I lived with her for a while. On top of this, my cousin, who I looked up to, I grew really close with, overdosed on heroin and was left with brain damage. At the same time, my friend was left with brain damage. And to make things worse, I remember during this period of time, we hadn't heard from him or his brother. So myself, my father, and my youngest cousin went over to their house to check on him one day. And I swear this image will probably be burned into my skull the rest of my life. So we walked into this house. Both my cousins were using. The house was filled with empty alcohol, cigarette butts, trash, dog shit, cockroaches, you guys name it. It was absolutely wrecked. And this was exceptionally hard on me to see these two people I loved so much living like this. But we did our best to get them on their feet again. Unfortunately, a few years later, one of them went to live in a halfway house and get his life together, and the other one unfortunately took his own life. And the emotional intensity of all these different experiences, there was some I didn't even mention, but between my friend, my mom, and my cousins was so overwhelming, to say the least, that I pretty much shut all my emotions off entirely. I stuffed them down as far as I could so I wouldn't have to deal with them. I wouldn't have to think about it or see them or anything like that. So during this time, I slipped into a bit of a stage of depression. It was really just like melancholy. I just didn't care about anything either way. It wasn't even extreme sadness. It was just like dullness. And my girlfriend and my mother, they were always there for me, but I wasn't in a place to open up to them. I wasn't in a place to talk about all these things. And the worst part was just the guilt the next few years from the accident with my friend, combined with all the anger and the sadness and the grief over my family. It was enough to make a kid go mad. I was only 16 at the time, so I had no idea how to handle all this. I particularly was not able to get the thoughts out of my head that I ruined my best friend's life. That was something that I was reminded of, every day when I went to school and he wasn't there, and my friends would make comments, and it was really, really hard. So during this time, I'd skip school. I smoked a lot of weed to kind of numb the pain, and pretty much I'd find every possible way to escape the current reality I was living. And when I look back, it's crazy to say, but the main thing that kept me from abusing hard drugs and kind of going down that darker, self-destructive path was seeing the life my cousins were living and seeing the path that they chose. And it kind of kept me from steering that way. In addition to that, the one thing that kept me grounded was playing competitive lacrosse with my friends. It kept me active, it kept me out of serious trouble, and it really gave me something to work towards. Now, the year that was hell was officially over, and it was time to go into junior year of high school. And at that time, I received a lacrosse scholarship to a private school in the area that wasn't too, far away. And this was a massive, massive turning point for me. It was a change of environment, it was new people, and it was a completely fresh opportunity to reinvent myself and to start fresh. I became the co-captain of my lacrosse team. I made a bunch of new friends, and honestly, things were going very, very well overall. The happiest I'd been in the last year or so. I even started a very lucrative and pretty sketchy side hustle selling homework and test answers and test banks to the students at my new private school. They had a lot of extra money, and I liked money. So it got to the point doing that where my mom actually found a box of money and she thought I was slinging drugs. So, oops. So all was really good until I started experiencing these crippling anxiety and panic attacks out of the blue. I mean, all those emotions I had stuffed down, I thought were gone forever. I was in the clear. Yeah, no, those did not disappear like I'd hoped. So there was no hiding from what had happened. And if I wanted to keep functioning as a normal high school kid, I had a lot of work to do. I had a long road ahead of me. And I didn't really know what to do. So luckily my mom was very supportive, and she started sending me to this energetic healer because I wanted to try something different. And I knew that these trapped emotions, they needed to be released if I were to move forward. So I started working with these different various modalities to deal with what was my new greatest fear, and that was panic attacks. And what was so crazy about these panic attacks is that they would strike really aggressively and really randomly, creating this intense fear of being in social environments, right? My pride and my ego did not want my friends to know what I was going through, right? I did a really good job at hiding pretty much all the shit I had been through, all the panic attacks, all that from them. But eventually, the symptoms were me feeling like my throat was closing up and I couldn't breathe. It actually got so bad to the point where the first panic attack I ever had, I was driven to the hospital because I thought I was having a heart attack. And then the second panic attack I had, I was with a girl I was speaking to at that time. And I told her, I'm like, look, my legs were shaking, all this stuff was going on. Drive me to the hospital and let me just sit in the parking lot so I feel comfortable and I can let this pass. It was that bad. So driven by the desire to overcome this whole thing, I became absolutely obsessed with learning about mindset, healing trauma, and understanding what sets average people apart from the extraordinary. What pushes people to overcome these adversities and how do they work through them? So I want you to know that working through this anxiety, it was a day-to-day battle, and I was willing to do damn near anything to resolve it. Some days I was genuinely so crippled by it, I'd turn down seeing friends. I would just lay in my bed, just scared, thinking about how I'd never be able to live a normal life again. And yeah, that was that. So during this time, I started meditating almost every single day and doing breath work so I could become more conscious of my thoughts. And something I did that was not necessarily recommended, but I went as far as intentionally putting myself in these terrifying situations to self-induce panic attacks, basically forcing myself to sit through them. And I would prove to my mind that there was literally nothing to fear, that I could work through anything no matter how intense it was. And what that did for me was it created a radical change. because once I learned that I could sit through the panic attack and through the anxiety, and I knew that no matter what, I wasn't gonna die, I was gonna be okay, that gave me the confidence and the courage to be able to go back into these social situations without fearing having a panic attack again. So I was finally able to start living a normal life, even though I would still get them. It was just I was able to actually work through them now. So all these events impacted me so much that in the following years, I set out on a mission to inspire others to basically pursue their dreams despite the adversity, the fear, and the uncertainty that life throws at us. So at 18, with a massive vision and no idea how to make any of this a reality, I took a leap of faith during my sophomore year of college, and I invested into a mastermind community known as Arte. And at the time, I don't know if it's still going on, but it was ran by Ed Milet and Andy Frisella, who were two of my online mentors at the time. And I was one of the youngest members in this entire community. It absolutely opened my eyes up to an entirely new world of possibilities. And through this program, I was able to connect with a ton of other business owners who were much older than me, much more wise than me, who had been through multiple businesses, failed a bunch of times, and learned a bunch. And I was able to gather wisdom and inspiration to make this thing a reality. They were really happy to pour into me, which I was so grateful for. And my hunger for learning grew even stronger. Naturally, what happened was I started to drift down a very different path than most of my friends in college, right? They were partying all the time. They were sleeping with a bunch of girls. They were doing all these things. And my mindset had started to shift dramatically. I was meditating every day. I was reading. I was training really hard in the gym. But my fear at the time of not fitting into what my fraternity brothers were doing and what they would think of me was still much stronger than my will to fully commit to this change. So don't get me wrong, guys, I definitely had my fun in college. I had probably too much fun, but I was quickly realizing that this lifestyle of binge drinking and hooking up with girls just to feed my ego and then feel like garbage the next few days was not serving me in any capacity, and it definitely was not moving me forward to my mission and my vision that was so deeply ingrained at my core. So I kept this evolving part of me pretty hidden until the better half of my junior year, when I believe at that point God gave me a very strong warning sign that I needed to get my act together and start moving on the right path. So what happened was my buddy and I were drinking all morning. We took a party bus up to an away tailgate at Jacksonville, and we were partying on top of my truck. And I don't remember all of it obviously, but I essentially fell straight on my face. I broke my nose in a lot of different places. I still have a scar there, and I passed out just to wake up in the hospital, absolutely covered in blood. I'll put some pictures on here. And after this day, I was so scared and shaken up that I vowed to never get that out of control ever again. And I'm happy to say that I've kept that promise ever since. So this event finally gave me the clarity and the confidence I needed to go all in on my business and radically change my lifestyle regardless of what anyone thought. I didn't care about what my fraternity brothers thought or any of that. I just was like, fuck it, I need to go all in here. So I started the 75 hard challenge that Andy Frisella created, and I went all the way in on me. Now, the first big step towards this vision was creating a podcast and a lifestyle brand / education company I called Real Driven back in 2019. And the mission was really to provide young adults all the resources they needed to realize their potential and strive for self-mastery. I used the lifestyle brand portion of it to build a community around my vision and host fun events like workouts and meetups and boot camps and photo shoots with all my ambassadors. And at that time, I was really into personal development, and I wanted to learn more, and I needed to learn more to be able to serve my clients better. So I became certified in personal training, NLP, Reiki, Theta healing, Huna, a bunch of different things where I learned all about the mind, energy, and really just creating inner transformation. Now, I didn't have much income at the time, and I needed to find ways to supplement my business expenses and all this education, so I started a moving company called Real Strong Moving, where I helped sorority girls and new freshmen move in and out of their place. This was a very cash-heavy business I ran for 3 years, and it paid for all my trips, my apparel, and all my startup expenses. And it was pretty damn fun at the same time. So around this whole time, I discovered a new passion when my business mentor introduced me to swing trading options. I had always been really fascinated with the stock market thanks to my father and my grandfather, but I hadn't dabbled in trading at all. I just had a brokerage account and learned about stocks since a young age. And truthfully, it was love at first sight because I felt like I had found something, a skill that challenged me. It was really lucrative, and it was really aligned with the skill sets I had just spent years developing. Then in 2020, right, you guys all know what happened, COVID hit and everything was shut down. I couldn't run in-person events anymore, bringing everything I was building to a screeching halt. No more events, no more ambassadors, no more lifestyle brand. So I focused on building the online portion of my business, and in all my free time, I spent 3, 4, 5 hours a day studying the markets and continuing learning from my trading mentor. Recklessly at that time, I got a little confident and I took all the money I'd saved up through high school, through college, through my birthdays, through pretty much everything I had, all the money to my name, and I put it in the markets. And if you guys remember during that time when the Fed started printing all that money, tech stocks pretty much did nothing but go straight up, and that's what I was trading, that's what I was investing in. So I couldn't even miss if I tried. So from 2020 until February-ish or 2021, I made more money than I knew what to do with as a 21-year-old. And as you can imagine, my ego quickly grew really inflated. My self-worth became really tied to money and success and how I was doing. And the issue here was my knowledge was probably at around a 4, but my confidence was a lot closer to a 10. Soon enough, naturally, I fell victim to a lot of my own overconfidence, a lot of my pride and greed, and I made a lot of really rash decisions from ego. It was an incredibly vicious cycle that resulted in me losing around $80,000 in 2 to 3 months, with one of those days being about $28,000. And I remember after that loss sitting in my car thinking about how I just lost the entire value of this car I just bought in one day. And almost everything I had made the prior year vanished, leaving me with a ton of anger, a ton of self-hatred, and a whole bunch of confusion about what to do next. My self-worth and identity at this time were extremely tied to monetary success, and that triggered what they call a dark night of the soul. Around this time, I went to do a breakthrough session also with my mom to work on some of those trapped emotions and trauma from the experiences I just talked about, and it opened up just an entire tsunami of all these intense emotions that I hadn't felt in years. Like literally had not felt any of these emotions since I was little. And I was absolutely just not in a mental and emotional state to handle this at all. So I was left in basically a full-blown existential crisis at the age of 22, questioning life, questioning, the purpose of life, what I was doing, who I was. And I felt a profound sense of loss and guilt and self-doubt and inner turmoil. It was arguably one of the darkest periods of my entire life for about 2 months. I questioned, how I got so far off my path, who I was, and more importantly, who I wanted to become, who was Nick Updike. And with no other option but to pretty much either give up on life or look inwards, I embarked on a very intensive spiritual journey seeking answers. And with the immense support and patience from my girlfriend at the time and my mother, I put one foot in front of the other and I moved forward. And for the first time in my life, I surrendered all control to everything external, and I felt all the emotions that were coming up and began rewiring my brain for positivity. I had fully committed to the process of healing and rebuilding myself from the ground up. Now, this was a process, just like overcoming the anxiety. It was not an instant shift, but week after week, I began to feel more confident in myself, a lot more at peace again, and I started to see glimpses of real happiness starting to return into my life. I was humbled, but happy to say I was not defeated yet. I picked myself up, and with a fresh mindset, reconstructed values, and a renewed desire to grow from this whole experience, I was ready to embrace the next chapter that life had to offer. Now, truthfully, I still had a bone to pick. After getting a taste of the potential impact that trading could have on my life, I knew there was a lot more to explore with it, and I was really excited to go deeper. So with this whole new mindset and identity, I decided to go all in on mastering this skill set. So from mid-2021 through 2022, I invested in multiple different trading mentorships, and I spent every day reviewing my sessions, mastering the material I was learning. And when I say learning, I'm talking 4 to 8 hour days. It was like what I spent the majority of my time doing, and it was safe to say that trading became a bit of an obsession. So by mid-2022, I started to find consistent success by formulating my own systems and my own strategies based on everything I had learned over the past 3 years. But something was definitely still missing. Even with the strong edge in systems and really solid technicals, I kept falling prey to my own emotions and lack of discipline. It quite frankly baffled me because in every other area of my life, I was extremely disciplined. I was doing all the right things. I was taking action every single day, and I felt really good. Then it hit me like that. My mentors had overlooked a really key component of successful trading, the mental and the emotional game. And I'm not just talking about the basics of trading psychology that most people, talk about. I'm talking about how trading is a spiritual journey, and it requires you to confront your demons and work through your limiting beliefs. From my experience, it shines a spotlight on pretty much everything you need to learn in your life, all the things that you need to heal, and all the fears that you need to overcome that you've been hiding from. So this realization was a huge one for me, and it was a massive turning point, not just in my trading journey, but in my life overall. See, no matter how good my strategy was, if I couldn't manage my thoughts and emotions and work through these beliefs that were limiting my success, I was doomed to self-destruct and continue to make poor decisions. And something that Ed Milet said once, it always stuck with me. He says, you can only achieve to the level you feel worthy of. So towards the end of 2022, I made it my mission to tackle this massive elephant in the room that was the mental and the spiritual game of trading. So at this time, I was trading full-time for income, and it was one of the most stressful seasons of my life. By the way, I highly do not recommend trading as your only source of income unless you have a bunch of money put aside, or at the very least, a few very strong years of profitability behind you. So while building out my new vision, I took a high-ticket sales job at my friend's company, and it was exactly what I needed at that time to provide the safety and the security I needed to continually develop my trading prowess and the mental game system I, myself, and so many others really desperately needed. Then by the end of 2022, I started to feel really trapped and unhappy. Although I was making really good money at this job and I was extremely grateful for the opportunity, every fiber of my body knew this was not what I was meant to be doing. This was not aligned with my vision. It was pretty much a stepping stone towards where I needed to go. And at this time, I had stacked up a good bit of delayed commissions, and I decided to attend my friend's plant medicine retreat in Costa Rica and sit with grandmother ayahuasca for the first time in my life. So without going into extreme detail, by the end of this retreat, my entire grasp of reality was completely shattered. Now, I've never shared any of this publicly, and I don't expect or need anyone watching this to fully believe me. They're my personal experiences working with this very potent plant medicine. So everything I'm about to share, by the way, I remember like it was yesterday, and I kept it very well documented in my journal, so none of my memories were tainted with time. All right, here we go. So my intention coming into this retreat was to connect a lot more deeply with God, Creator, my higher self, and understand the universe and how life worked on a much greater capacity in a much deeper way. And to say I got what I asked for would be a bit of an understatement. Many events happened over the course of my journeys, but a few of them really shook me to my core. The first one being receiving very intense energy transmissions, healings, upgrades, and channeling fifth dimensional light beings. I know it sounds weird, but this energy was so pure and potent, it felt like electricity. And at one point I thought my physical body was actually going to shut down because I couldn't hold all the energy. And within these energy transmissions were all this information, they looked almost like code and symbols that I could visually see and I could feel, but I did not understand any of it, naturally. So when I asked, what is all this? All I got was this really strong knowing that I wasn't meant to access this information at this time in my life, and it was meant for another period. So I was like, okay, sick, thanks for the explanation. But even more notable than that was something that occurred internally, commonly referred to as a Kundalini awakening, and it was by far the most intense event of my entire life, without question. It felt almost as if a volcano of energy had erupted in my lower chakras and was working its way up through my body to my crown and then back down like a yo-yo. And during this experience, I was having just uncontrollable full body orgasms. I did not have any control over my body. All I could do was just surrender. And during this time, I was shown and felt the full range of human emotions to the 10th degree. Ones that I didn't even know existed, from the world's deepest suffering and agony, extreme rage, sadness, all the way to euphoria and peace, to the point where I honestly would have been happy to just pass away right then and there. So the combination of these events just completely blasted open, my third eye and my heart chakra, leaving me feeling like I was plugged into a high voltage battery for weeks, and my senses were dialed up to a 10 out of 10. With that being said, I had never felt more at peace and joyful for no particular reason in my entire life. And I was actually left with way more questions about life in the universe and energy and all these things than I had before I even started the retreat. And usually, if you take a medicine like this, obviously the effects are going to last 24, 48 hours. But for me, I started experiencing all these crazy supernatural events after the retreat while I was completely sober. So I had no idea what was in store for me, but one thing was ultra clear, and that was that I needed to make some very aligned life changes. So I listened to my intuition despite all the fear that arose, and I ended up booking a one-way trip with my friend to live in Bali, where I could pretty much just focus on my spiritual development and the next evolution of myself and what I wanted to bring to this world. So from the moment I landed in Bali, all my time, my energy, my focus went into developing something I had yet to find in the trading space, something I desperately needed at the start of my journey, and I know a ton of other people needed as well. And that was an in-depth mentorship and community, pretty much an entire ecosystem for traders that not only delivers a profitable trading system, but also a complete system for mastering the mental game, with resources to develop the personal skills for sustained success. Because I now understood it's not just about the technicals and charting and having a system and a strategy that works. It's about developing yourself so that you can manage your emotions, so that you can work through blocks that come up and you can heal, so then you can actually continually make money and keep the money because you're not driven by pride and ego and all these other things. The rest is history. Now, 18 months later, I've been fortunate enough to say that I've traveled the world with my best friends while trading full time and doing what I love most. Using trading as a powerful tool and vehicle to guide others in their own self-discovery process while radically transforming their inner and their outer world so they can move closer to their vision for life. Now, my current vision for Alchemy Trading Academy is to create this complete ecosystem for traders where they not only have all the resources they need to become profitable, but also support them in their quest for inner peace, self-mastery, and financial freedom. So that's pretty much my journey on how I got here today, some of the things I've been through, and I share all of this for you guys. As traders listening, hopefully some of it may have related to you and some of the things you've been going through on your journeys. But if you guys need help with this, with navigating the intricacies of trading, of self-discovery, please feel free to reach out at any time. And I hope you found some value in this. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.